Welcome back to the British Teens Preview Series. As always, I'm Jason. Joining me this time, we have another fantastic athlete. We have Hannah Macmahon. I got the name right this time, so I'm very happy because that didn't take more than one take, did it, Hannah?
No.
Hannah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I mean, I'll be honest, full disclosure, this is earlier than I usually like to record these. But you've been very accommodating, so I had to, return the favor, didn't I? And
Yeah.
get up slightly early so we could
I'm an
do
early bird, so.
So Hannah, I always start off with the kind of important question for the teen championships, and that is, how old are you and what age group are you in?
So I'm 16, so that means I'm competing in the 16 to 17-year-old age.
Now that's quite a competitive age group.
Yeah.
Going to follow up with the question. Obviously, you must be a long-time competitor. How long have you been doing CrossFit, Hannah?
I've only been doing CrossFit for about, I think, 9 months, maybe 10 months at most. I started in August 2020.
And I guess then, I mean, that's already not a huge amount of time to be doing CrossFit. But also looking at the kind of global scene around us means you've also started CrossFit at a time where a lot of people have kind of not necessarily like slowed down doing CrossFit, but been forced to do a lot of home workouts and Zoom workouts and things like that. So I guess my big question is kind of, how did you get into CrossFit and start at this really weird time?
Yeah. So I remember I used to just go to like a regular commercial gym for ages, and I was always very strong and I liked the barbell and stuff like that. So my dad was like to me one day, he came home from work and he was like, oh, there's a sport called CrossFit and there's like Matt Fraser and Tia Toomey, and I was like, oh, this sounds good. And I remember just watching YouTube videos and being like, oh, this is so cool, like I want to do this, because it's like what I was doing in the gym, but you're doing it competitively, and I'm really competitive. And loads of sports, like when you're younger in Ireland, normally you play Gaelic and soccer. And I did them, but I didn't really like them. I kind of did them because all my friends are doing them. So I never really had a sport. I wasn't really sporty because I was just doing these for like the crack. And then once I found this, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. So I remember saying to my brother, I was like, oh, there's a sport called CrossFit. And he was like, oh yeah, there's a gym in town that does it. And I was like, oh, cool, because I thought it was like an American thing, and I thought that there was like no CrossFit places in Ireland. And he was like, oh yeah, this place does it. And I was like to my dad, oh, will you come with me for the first class? Because I didn't want to be on my own kind of going to the first class, because I was only 15 at the time. And he was like, yeah, sure. So we went one day, and yeah.
So does your dad still do CrossFit?
Yeah. Like once a week, but he loves it. And then he always compares himself to like me, and he gets really discouraged. I'm like, I'm doing this every day. This is like a daily thing.
You should tell him to have this job where I get to interview all these different, because I've been doing CrossFit a lot longer than your dad. And I get to interview a lot of teens or masters who are either considerably younger than me or considerably older than me and would absolutely school me in any workout. So if he wants to feel that humbling process, this is the job for him.
Yeah.
It's interesting then, you're already sort of doing CrossFit on your own then. Because I think
I didn't really know, but I was kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because I think for a lot of people that have kind of maybe a background in doing kind of exercise or a bit of sport or whatever, they quite often come into CrossFit and there may be, maybe it's like the gymnastic background, so it's kind of like pull-ups and toes above, things like that, they're okay, or they do a lot of kind of cardio work anyway, so they're they're good runners or on the rower, and quite often it's the barbell that is like, this was the new toy that I'd never played with before, was a barbell. But you were saying actually you loved the barbell, and this was like, where can I go and use a barbell?
Yeah, where can I do this and win?
Now, I couldn't help but notice that you mentioned you have a slight competitive streak.
Yes.
So I suppose that leads into, how did you find the British Teens Championships? How come you decided to sign up, considering you hadn't been doing CrossFit very long? What are your goals? What are your dreams?
Yeah.
I pass over to you.
So yeah, I was always really competitive. I've got an older brother, so we're very competitive with each
enough
other.
said.
Yeah. So So yeah, I was always competitive, and he was always beating me at things. I was like, I need to find something that I'm going to beat him at. So but yeah, how I found the competition was, I suppose I'm kind of glad I started CrossFit during like a global pandemic, because there was no competitions, and I know that if I started, I would have wanted to go to a competition the next day and like compete loads and all this, and I'd probably burn out. So I'm kind of glad that happened. So I think I was just scrolling through Instagram, and it came up on my explore page or something, and I sent the post to my coach, because we had been talking about it like a few weeks before. I was like, how do you find competitions that are on? And he was like, oh, they come up on Instagram, or there's like a few websites that have them. I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw this and I sent it to him. I was like, so I just sent him a post, and he goes, yeah, let's do it. So I was like, okay. And then I signed up.
I mean, that's amazing that you needed a global pandemic to stop you from competing.
It can't be dead, yeah.
So you've mentioned your coach. So are you kind of having like individual one-on-one coaching now, or you?
So I'll do like personal training once or twice a week, and then the other times I'll kind of do my own thing, but he's there so that if I ever need help, or I'm confused on something, or if I'm doing something wrong, he can like tell me. So yeah.
I mean, you are. I've again, I've spoken to a lot of teens that are competing, and obviously, if they're competing, they're pretty all in. But again, a lot of them have either that competitive background in a sport, whereas you sort of said that you kind of played the sports, but you weren't really that into them.
Yeah.
Or they've been doing CrossFit for a long time now, and so it makes sense again that they've reached that kind of level. You have really accelerated the process of getting in and training and getting your coach.
Yeah.
What kind of do you hope to get out of this sort of CrossFit journey that you're on?
I hope that maybe next year, in the Open, I get through to the qualifiers, hopefully. But at the same time, I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. But at the same time, I am competitive, so that's gonna happen. But yeah, I just want to get better and keep. And I think that's the good thing about CrossFit, is that like I like being able to get good at something. Like I'll be like doing my pull-ups, doing my toes fire, like, oh, I'm so bad at this. Then I'm like, yeah, but I can get better. So I kind of like that, like looking forward to being able to do all these things.
I suppose within CrossFit there is no like ceiling, is there, on anything? Because you mentioned like pull-ups. You can there are people that like, oh, my goal is to get a pull-up, and they work really hard at that, and they use jumping pull-ups and then a band, and then they get a pull-up. But even once you've got multiple pull-ups, it's like, I want 20 unbroken. I can do that. Now I want 30 unbroken, 40 unbroken, 50 unbroken. So it's just, you keep going, right? It's same with any barbell movement. It's pretty easy, right? Because it's just
heavier and heavier.
How heavy can I go? Or how unbroken can I go on these ridiculous thrusters?
Yeah.
So you've signed up already, I'm assuming, for the online portion. Now that's starting very soon. So how has your training gone then in the lead up? So from the time you kind of knew about the competition to now, have you adjusted your training at all? Are you training more with purpose, would you say?
Yeah. So at the minute, I'm actually on a strength cycle on the program that I'm on, which is programmed by my coach. But I'm not the only one on the program. It's kind of like a group kind of thing. So it's a lot of barbell, which I know I'm good at, but I need to get better. Do you know what I mean? But then I'm also doing a lot of gymnastics. So I'll do the programming for the day, and then I'll maybe do some handstand walk practice after, or do some kipping practice, just because that's where I struggle most, is in the gymnastics. So I know that I need to get better at that, but at the same time I still need to work on my strength and not like leave that and the next thing I get back to a barbell and I can't do it. Do you know what I mean?
All too well, I know what you mean. Right. So I'm trying to think how to phrase this question really. So obviously you've signed up for this teens competition, and I was just kind of wondering, because we often talk about the atmosphere at the competition, and I know you're in quite a competitive field, but you're obviously a very competitive person, so there's no way you're not aiming for one of those top 6 positions and actually going to get the trip over. I suppose travel, is that going to be an issue, a concern at all for you if you did make it through?
So I think in Ireland we're able to travel outside our country from the middle of July, so I should be fine. But yeah.
Well, we hope. Yeah, we want
We
to see
hope.
you there, right? I mean, who knows? The
Yeah.
world keeps going
Fingers crossed.
like one step forward, two steps back, but that's
I
fine.
know, yeah.
We're hoping for the best, aren't we? But my question on this regard was, obviously, as you've only been doing CrossFit for a short time, and you've been doing CrossFit kind of in isolation because, you used to get lots of drop-ins, you used to be able to just travel around and drop into different boxes and things yourself. It was a lot of a kind of bigger community, and now we are much more in our local communities of CrossFit because of the nature of the pandemic. I wonder if you've had much opportunity to kind of interact with others around your age that are also doing CrossFit as competitive as you, or are you kind of the outlier, the lone young one in the box?
Yeah, so I'd definitely be the youngest in my gym by like about 10 years. But I don't feel like I'll be talking to someone, I'll talk about school, I'd be like, oh yeah, in school we did this. They're like, you're in school? I'm like, yeah. And then they just get so surprised. They just think I'm like older than I actually am. I think I come across a lot older because I like to think I'm mature. And so yeah, I'd be the youngest in my gym. So it is a bit weird because I see like all these older people doing stuff and I'm like, oh, I want to be like that. And then I kind of have to step back and remind myself they are 10 years older than me and they've been doing this for a lot longer than me. I just need to kind of wait.
So are you looking forward then to an opportunity to, throw down with people that are not a lot older than you, that have not been doing it a lot longer than you, but are actually, your peers? And then you kind of, it'll give you that nice opportunity, right, to like really gauge yourself and be like, oh, actually, I am good for my age, or that weight that I'm lifting, that is a good weight for this age kind of thing, versus, that guy who's just an absolute beast on the barbell.
Yeah, my coach is like 34. So it is good to be able to do that. And yeah, because like you be in the gym and like see all these people, and then I just again have to remind myself they are 10 years older than me, and it does get frustrating because I'm like, well, I don't know what I should be at my age. But then I see all these girls on Instagram like Mal O'Brien and Emma Carey, who technically are the same age as me, but they're like elite. So then it's like two different ends of the spectrum. So it's hard to kind of find like middle ground. Do you know what I mean? Of like where I should be.
Yeah. So it sounds like the team competition is absolutely the thing for you, right? That's that'll give you a nice kind of gauge as to where you are. And then you've mentioned that you've got goals, you've got objectives you're working towards. It'll be a nice chance for you to see kind of how close or how far you are from those things, where you need to work on. But I think it will be great as well because we've mentioned when speaking with other teams that it gave them this kind of pool of resources among others their own age. So if you're there and you're meeting kind of people that are your age doing the same things as you, even if you can only kind of keep in touch over social media, it gives you just a more, because you've mentioned like, I see this teen, but they are an elite teen athlete who's probably been training for years. It's not the same. But if it's more like, oh, and this is someone who I know, I've met, we've spoken to, we've actually worked out together, it's just a bit more real, right?
Yeah, completely. That would help a lot.
Well, all the best, Hannah. I really hope that it goes well for you with the online stage. It sounds like you've been, doing everything you can to set yourself up for, the best chance possible. Really hope to see you in Southampton. I realize I keep saying that to everyone, and eventually I'm going to have said it to more people than there are spots.
There's 12 people showing up. He told me to be here.
He just said he wanted to see me, so I made sure I was there. Sorry, but it sounds like you've got a plan. I look forward to seeing you execute it, and really hope to see you in Southampton.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like the video, share it around. Maybe if you know somebody that hasn't had an opportunity to compete and maybe feels this is too big for their first competition, well, perhaps Hannah can set the example that it's not, it's a perfect first competition for them. Subscribe to the channel so you'll see the next athlete that we'll be interviewing for the preview series, and we'll see you there.